Good morning. This is S01-04, I believe, December 20th. Should clear my throat before I start recording. So there's a couple stories I was going to tell. A couple reprises from yesterday. Since I probably won't go back in and edit. I said plastic plates when I meant to say glass plates when we were talking about children parties, and there's a couple other mistakes I made. I actually meant to say I was 125 pounds, not 137 pounds. And it's funny, later in that commentary I said 135 instead of 137. Anyway, this morning I thought, in line with some of the suggestions that Matt made, helpful tips. This one's ridiculous, and as an adult, I should know this better than anyone. In fact, this one has bit me in the butt a couple of times, but yesterday on my way home, I was very low on gas, but I had plenty of gas to get home and make it to the gas station in the morning, and that was my intention, and that's going to segue into another story about coffee. My intention was to go out in the morning, get gas at the Turkey Hill, and while I was there, get coffee. A couple reasons why. One, I wanted to get home. I didn't want to stop, but a couple of reasons why I wanted to stop there to get gas. There's like, I wanted to get coffee in the morning, something like that. I've already stopped at the gas station. I've got my coffee. It's sitting next to me. I'm waiting for it to cool down. I never mentioned Turkey Hill's coffee in the conversation about good coffees. I mentioned that I liked Dunkin' Donuts and I liked McDonald's coffee. I didn't even mention Turkey Hill, and they have good coffee, and I believe it's comparable in price to McDonald's. McDonald's has pretty cheap coffee. Like the large coffee at Turkey Hill is like $1.09 or less. I can't remember it, but it's like 1/3 the cost of Dunkin' Donuts coffee. And if you drink coffee every day, like it would make sense for me to stop at Turkey Hill for coffee if I'm going to stop for coffee on my way to work. What happens is, out of habit, I'll stop at Dunkin' Donuts, and it just sticks in your mind. Like you don't see advertising for Turkey Hill like you do for Dunkin' Donuts and things like that. So it doesn't stick in your head. I think advertising really works because, like, when you think, I gotta get coffee on the way to work, you think, where's there's a Dunkin' Donuts? Again, I like their coffee, but it's ridiculously expensive, especially we can get gas station coffee, which isn't bad, for 1/3 the price. Mind you, setting up the machine and making it the night before at home is also another solution, but I've already talked about the problems I have making good coffee at home. I don't know if there's a psychological thing where it just tastes better because somebody else is making it, but I do believe I haven't found the right way to make coffee. I have been experimenting lately with different ways of blooming the grounds and things like that, but I think, like I said in a previous video, one of the main things I have to do is get the grounds ground to the right consistency. Like I said, I use a bullet. It turns it into either a chunky mess or a fine powder, and I know that's not really the way you're supposed to grind coffee. I probably just need to buy a professional, or at least a semi-professional coffee grinder to grind better grinds, so I have better control over the coffee situation. So I was going to talk about, there's a story I'm going to tell in a few minutes. Matt had suggested, the thing about that went into coffee, but I never explained why to get gas at the afternoon. So the reason you want to get gas on your way home in winter, like especially in winter, one, it's cold in the morning. It's like it's bitterly, like especially if it's bitterly cold outside, it sucks to go out, get out of the car and put gas in your car. The second thing that sucks, and this has happened to me multiple times, is I've made that same decision. I've decided to get gas in my car in the morning, and the gas door that hides the gas cap is just frozen shut. Like not that it's coated in ice necessarily, but moisture has gotten in there and has jammed it, and I've done damage to my previous car, and I think I've nicked this car at one point trying to open that gas door on a morning when it's frozen shut, and I can't not get gas because I needed gas on the way home. There's no way I was going to make it to work with the amount of gas that was in my car. Usually just enough to make it to a gas station. So that's one reason to think ahead. If it's winter, if there's freezing temperatures, or any possibility of freezing temperatures. Remember, it doesn't have to be freezing. Your car is a heat sink, so it doesn't have to be freezing for your gas cap door to freeze shut. You should get it in the afternoon. Even if it's a pain in the ass and a hassle, spend the extra time. Even if your plan is, well, I want to get coffee in the morning, so I'll stop there. It's like, no, get gas in the afternoon. Just stop there and get coffee if that's what you want to do. There, finish that. Whew. So Berlin, it's been in the news for a couple of days now. A lot of people have commented about it, and it's a tragedy. I mean, if you're not aware, there was this enormous aquarium in Germany full of a bunch of rare fish. I think it was 5 stories tall or something like that. Just an enormous amount of water. My understanding is a non-climate controlled area, acrylic tank, and it burst. Fortunately, it happened early in the morning. None of the shops were open. Nobody was there. Nobody was killed. Just about all the fish died, and it's a horrible tragedy. And like, you have to wonder, like, you know, how does something like that happen? Like, I mean, I know thermodynamically, I know what happened. It had to do with the temperature and you know, the gradient from the top to the bottom, because of the place wasn't climate controlled, and it burst and it lost all the water. But the thing that's eating me that nobody talks about is, what did these fish know about the Clintons? That's a terrible thing. Terrible joke. I stand by it. Is that guy in my lane? Guy is in my lane. No, now he's not. Looked like he was coming right at me. So the story I was going to tell, again, this is not one of the stories at the end where I say it's fake. This is actually a true story. This is something that happened to me many years ago when I worked in distribution. I was running the transportation end of a mail delivery company. We delivered mail periodicals throughout Philly metro area, Syracuse, Washington, Ohio, DC, Maryland. And it was my job to, like, I think I was in charge of the Philly metro area, like out to Bluebell, all these areas, plus the DC run, Richmond, Virginia, New York, Ohio, Syracuse, all those places. So I ran the trucks, and for a while I ran the metro area, like those big publication and mail runs out to the outskirts of reality. And I had trouble keeping drivers for most of us. The people that did the Philly area, the Philly metropolitan area, they were pretty consistent. Very rarely did I have to replace those people. I had to fire one guy, which was an unfortunate situation. I had literally worked with him in a completely different life. When I worked in a manufacturing plant years ago, I worked with him. He was on the shop floor. He ran machines. I was some kind of nerd. I did all kinds of stuff, and I did run machines, but I was also an engine nerd and a draftsman and things like that. So anyway, he got fired from that job while I was working there. He got fired. I can't remember if it was for his attendance or if it was drinking on the job or something like that. He was a true raging alcoholic. Poor fella. Him and another guy. They were truly, like, you know, they before noon, each of them had already gone through an entire bottle of vodka. He was alcoholic to the point where if he didn't have anything to drink for an extended period of time, meaning just hours, he was a shaking mess. I mean, like, he literally looked like he was about to fall down. He was shaking so bad. So anyway, when I got the job at this transportation company, he ended up being one of the drivers, one of the route drivers, and it turned out he was still an alcoholic. Which is dangerous. Like, I was concerned about the liability for my company, even though he was a subcontractor and he didn't work directly for us. There's a liability there. That's not that's not the reason I fired him. I fired him because not only was he an alcoholic, but he wasn't doing the job. The most bizarre coincidences. So first of all, like, I get a job being this guy's boss when we both used to work at a company, someplace completely different. By the way, this isn't the story I'm going to tell. I'm just telling the story before the other story. It is related. In doing his routes, we had these large brown boxes. I say large, I don't know. Probably can't see my other hand. It was a fish this big. They were large boxes. I'd say like maybe, let's call it a 2.5 foot cube for fun. Up and around that size, some slightly smaller, some slightly larger. And these were prospecti from places in New York we used to deliver to. Like, a lot of our business came from the trade centers. After the trade center went down, we didn't get that work anymore. Or at least a lot less of it. That was very sad. Not that we didn't get to work, the whole trade center thing. It's funny that that's not funny. It's interesting story. I was watching a YouTuber this morning that I like, Fran from Fran Lab, and she was talking about the same thing. She was talking about the thing in Germany and the trade, her stories relating to the Twin Towers and things like that. And it's a short video. It's worth watching. I don't know if you like. I don't know anything about you. I know everything about you. I've got one viewer. So yeah, you should check out Fran of Fran's Lab. She's like a little tinkerer. She's an electronics maker. So if you're into those kind of channels, she's a good watch. I think she's local. I know for a long time. For a long time she was in Philly. I believe she is still in Philly. Very close to Fishtown, actually, where she was, and she moved from there, like right off Girard somewhere. Anyway, where was I? Something. Towers went down, less mail. So the guy, bizarre coincidence, like he was doing his route poorly, like we're paying him to deliver this stuff. Well, he's dumping it, like he's dumping mail, that typical trope where the mailman keeps the mail at his house or just throws it in the trash instead of delivering it because it's a big hassle. Like, you want me to deliver all this stuff? So he literally was dumping it behind a garage. The garage belonged to the father of my best friend. So he was literally, like, of all the places on the planet that he could have dumped the mail, he dumped it in the one place that it was definitely going to get back to me, that it was dumped there, because for reasons my friend knew where I worked and his father knew like where the stuff came from. So like literally anywhere else on the entire planet he would have dumped the stuff, he would have gotten away with it, but unfortunately for him, he dumped it there, like the exact spot that it would get found. And at that point I had to fire him. And my friend whose father found the mail was with me at the time when I had to fire him. And like I guess sometimes I'm not a great communicator, and I tried to find out why he was doing this. And like I kind of knew the reasons. I wanted to give the guy the benefit of the doubt. And like at one point, like he made up something ridiculous. I can't remember what he said, but he made up something ridiculous. Like, and I guess what I said was like, something along the lines of, I have to let you go, you're done. Like I need a better story than that. He literally thought I meant, come up with a better story and I'll keep you. And so he like, I guess a half hour later, he called me with this elaborate, ridiculous, clearly untrue story, thinking that that's what I wanted. And I was like, no, you're fired. Like I didn't want a great narrative. I'm just telling you you're fired. So it was again, I'm laughing, but it was a very, very sad situation. Very sad. He died shortly after that. So that's horrible. So the story I was going to tell had to do with that job. So while working there, I was saying that there was transportation runs down to Maryland, Virginia, Syracuse, and stuff like that. And it was very hard to keep drivers because we didn't really pay a lot, and it's kind of grueling. It's a fast-paced, like it's a hurry-up-and-wait kind of job. You got a truck route, you're driving, you're driving a couple hundred miles, and then you get to a place, and a lot of times the stuff that you're getting there to pick up isn't ready. So it's a bunch of pickups and drop-offs. It's a complex network of transportation where we pull in mail-in periodicals and we drop off mail-in periodicals. The fellow who ran this business, brilliant guy. He started it out of his garage. He built it up, and it became this great business where he had made a bunch of relationships in an industry that's very cutthroat, and the profit margins are extremely small. So anyway, what happens when you manage all those routes, and it's dangerous, is like you have to know the routes, and a lot of times you have to cover the routes because there's no depth of coverage. Like you can't afford to just have a guy waiting in the wings, like drivers on retainer, when you're paying as little as we paid. I am going in and out of focus, and it doesn't really matter. So one day, and I can't remember the names, dates, places, not because I don't have a good memory. I really just don't care. These things don't mean anything to me at the time. But funny story. I've got two funny stories about Washington and covering the DC run while I don't have other drivers to do it. One story, I'm driving down to DC, and we hit a couple of post offices in DC, dropping off and picking up, dropping off mail from like New York, things like that, picking up stuff that's going to Baltimore and various places. It's not really important. It's just that there's red bags and clear bags. Red bags go one place, clear bags go another place, blah, blah, blah. It's this whole thing. So one day, I'm driving down to Brentwood. I'm pretty sure it was Brentwood Post Office, and things seem slightly off. So I'm driving up, and like one of the things that my boss at that job taught me was like this weird, like there's a way to be. There's a way to kind of exude an aura. So like he explained it to me a couple of times. He showed me different things. I won't talk about his past, but he showed me like different ways to the job is time critical, and sometimes you have to go into like skyscrapers to do deliveries and things like that. And he showed me body language and motions and things like that. So if you're like, one of the things that'll happen is you're getting into an elevator and there's like 13 other people that want to get into the elevator, but if they do, then you're going to stop at like 13 floors when you need to get to like floor 37 and get back out of that building as fast as possible. So he showed me ways to like get onto an elevator and actually get no one else to get, like the way you step in, turn around, the way you hold yourself, hand motions, and just brief words like that make people like not get in the elevator with you. And he was really good at it, and I've had to use that a few times. Like, and sometimes it's just a subconscious thing. So the point to that little side note is that when I pulled up to Brentwood Post Office, there was a policeman at the gate, and there was a different guard in the guard shack, and so I needed to go in. I don't like conversation. I have crushing social anxiety. I don't like dealing with people anyway. So I put on my stern face. I look at him. I give him the nod, and I just like point over there. And he lets me in. I go in. I get out of the van. Get out of the van. I get out of the van, and I take the bags that go to this particular place. Like, I pull up to the door. The place is weirdly empty. There's a group of cops standing in a circle. There's like squad cars with lights on, but there's no activity. And this place is usually a hub of activity this time in the morning. It's a post office, so you can imagine what goes on at a major post office in DC that time of the morning. So it was something a little off about the fact that there was like literally no activity. So I just don't have, like, it's in the back of my mind. Like, I'm aware of it, but I don't care. So I grab the 5 or 7 bags, and I walk up to the door, and it's got, like, I don't know if it's caution tape or crime scene tape, like just diagonally across the door, which doesn't register as a warning to me. It registers as an obstacle and a pain in the ass. What is this? Like, so I open the door, I go in, I go over to the machines, and I drop off the bags. And again, I may be mildly autistic, but again, it's not registering. The building is literally empty. There is no one in the building. The lights are on, but nobody's home. I'm making a joke there, but it's true. Not a single soul. The place is completely deserted. And I'm starting to walk out, and I realize, you know what? I can't just leave these bags here. This place is obviously closed. There's no one working here. I got to take these to the other post. There's another post office. So if you miss this post office, you go to the next one and you can drop the stuff off. But this is the place where you're supposed to drop it off. But you can go to the other place if the timing doesn't work out. So like, crap. So I gather my bags, go back to the door, open it up, step through the web of caution tape, and the 7 or so cops that were talking to each other are looking right at me as I'm walking down the stairs away from the building with my red bags. And one of them says, "Did you just come out of there?" And I right out of Monty Python. I do that turn around, look at the building. Like, you just watched me come out of. Whoa. Yes, yes, I just came out of there. There's nobody in there. I'm taking these to the next post office, and they were completely caught off guard. I'm pretty sure they should have arrested me, but they were so confused by the situation. They took my information, and they let me go on my way, and I went on my way. If you hadn't guessed already, this is the post office that was hit by the anthrax attack. So I literally walked into the post office moments after it was shut down. Like, everybody was cleared out. Moments, hours, whatever. Completely walked by DC's finest. Got by the guards at the gate, got by all the policemen in the lot, walked into the building, dropped off a bunch of bags, realized the error of my ways, grabbed the bags, walked back out, again, completely oblivious to the world around me, just trying to get my job done. The cops took my information, I finished the route, and later I died of anthrax. No, I didn't. I'm still here, see? But what happened after that is the CDC, the cops took my information, somehow that got to the CDC. The CDC called me relentlessly for weeks and kept insisting that they send me Cipro pills. And I kept saying, no, I feel fine, I don't want to take. I can't remember why I didn't want to take it. It's probably because I don't like taking any medications unless I absolutely have to. Generally the strongest thing I'll ever take is aspirin. I like to save my liver and kidneys for other activities. So I don't generally take any medications. I definitely wasn't going to take Cipro. I think I read about it, and I wasn't real happy with the side effects. Just the fact that it was a drug. I mean, that alone, it's like, nah, I don't want it. And it went on for weeks. They were begging me, they got to the point where they were saying, look, let us send it to you. We don't care if you take it. I guess maybe there was some kind of liability issue there. Because, I had walked by a bunch of DC cops and who knows who else, got into the building, left, and they're like, if this guy dies, we look really, really dumb. But I didn't die, I didn't get sick. And that's the story of my trip to the post office that was attacked by the anthrax. Completely true story, by the way. It's not one of those ones at the end that not Matt, my unnamed friend, suggested that I tell and then tell you it's a lie. Hand to God, absolutely true story. And since that went so quickly, since I don't remember the exact details, and I didn't bother to look them up because I really don't care. Although it is an amusing story, and I really should bring that out more often. No one believes me when I tell it. I've told a couple of Facebook friends, and they just they literally they've sent me pictures of of their face looking what's the word, dubious. They send me dubious faces, something like that. But there's another story equally equally harrowing, if not more harrowing, actually. Again, having to do with DC. Since you've already got the backdrop of what my story is, you understand why I'm in DC, why I'm in a panel van. So there was a sniper on the loose quite a few years back in the DC area, and I think it was DC, Baltimore, that whole thing. And they weren't traveling around the panel van, but the story for a while was they were looking for a panel van because someone somewhere saw a panel van once at an area where one of these things may have taken place. So then all of a sudden, like, everybody's focusing on these panel vans. So one day I'm driving down to DC because, again, I can't find a route driver that'll work for 13 cents an hour. And I'm zooming along. I think it was Route 50, I think is what it was. And I was exceeding the speed limit by a bit. And there's a lot of plain clothes down there. So I'm zipping down the road, and way back in the rearview mirror, I see a car that's pulled over. The lights come on, and it pulls it. Like, I know what's happening. Like they got me. It's the dangers of the job. So I know I'm going to get pulled over. So I'm very close to the Capitol. Actually, there's a distribution place. Like these places are like funny. Like you wouldn't recognize them during the day. They're often in just like what look like disused garages. But when they're hopping, the doors are open, the lights are on, there's cars everywhere, there's people putting mail and publications in and out of sacks, there's like exchanges going on. It's a finely oiled machine. It's amazing to watch these what look like derelict buildings suddenly spring into life with all this activity for a couple of hours every morning and then go back into the mists. But anyway, I'm on my way to this place that's relatively close to, you know what, I have a third story about DC. I'm on my way to this publication place. I'm like a couple of blocks away at this point, and the cop pulls me over. The plainclothes cop, I knew it was a cop, just the way you could just tell, you could see the shape of the car, the way they pulled out. I knew it was up. What was weird was, not only did that plainclothes cop car pulled me over, like 17 other cars, literally out of the woodwork from every other direction, just surrounded my van. I don't know what the hell it was. I don't know if it was they had a theory, like maybe they had been monitoring my specific truck because, like, I take the same route every day. There's like these set stops that we hit. So like out of nowhere, just like literally from all these different directions, like black and whites, blue and whites, whatever they are, like the actual cop cars with the sirens and the lights and stuff like that, completely surround my van. And they just stop. They stop. They get out of their cars, like, and they don't say anything. Like, literally get out of their cars, guns drawn, all surrounding my van, like just with their guns, looking at me, like 17 guys, all directions. I can see them in the mirrors and stuff like that. And I'm sitting there in the van with my hands 10 and 2, just, frozen solid, because I figure it's probably the best thing to do is wait for them to initiate communication. So a few centuries pass, and then in my rear view mirror on my my door, my driver's side door, I see this woman walking up. She's obviously FBI. See, like, they just have that look, the same way they look on TV. Like the thicker coat, like just the confidence. So she walks up. She asked me to roll my window down or something, like, maybe my window was down already, I don't remember. But communication starts, and she like asks me a bunch of questions. I pull out my tin with all my paperwork in it, with my route, where I've stopped, where I'm going, what I've been doing. She reviews that. She takes my information, my driver's license, she takes it back to her car. The whole time, none of these guys have said a word. They're just standing, guns drawn, pointed at me. She, like, it's weird. She's pleasant. She's very friendly, asking me questions, just being calming. And these guys are just like stone-faced, guns pointed directly at me. Some of them are kind of aimed down at this point, but there's still quite a few guns pointed at me. So she leaves. She goes back to her car, and I'm sitting there, and the cops have opened doors on the van. So my passenger door is now open. But what's weird, and there might be legal reasons for this, the cops are looking, but they're not breaching the thing. Like their head is very close to being inside the van, but they're not putting anything inside the van. They're just looking. And the tension is getting higher and higher. You can feel it. Like, I don't want to reuse the word palpable because I used it yesterday, but like you can feel the tension. Like these guys, like if I sneeze, like I'm clearly going to be Swiss cheese. So like my twisted mind is thinking, I've got to break the tension here. Like I've got to resort to comedy, because that's what you do when there's 17 cops surrounding you, guns pointed, stone-faced, just waiting for an excuse because these snipers have been making them look like jackasses for weeks at this point. They just need to get somebody. And the thought process is probably, like, it doesn't matter who we get. If we get somebody, whoever's doing the sniping is going to stop. So we just need to get somebody. And like I could very easily be that guy. I didn't crack a joke. I didn't tell one of my long and rambling, amusing anecdotes. I look over at the guy that's got his head like in his nose, like so close to being inside the van. He's looking at the floor. I look at him and go, "Hi, how you doing?" And he's like, "Hi." Completely broke it, caught him off guard. He broke character. He went from being this stone-faced like cop to just this friendly everyday guy for a split second. It's like, "Hi, how you doing?" And he caught himself, and he got so mad. Like it was the worst thing I could have possibly done, because he went from being just this angry cop to very briefly just a friendly guy to being a very, very angry cop because I caught him off guard and broke his character. So that didn't go well. Later on, a few weeks later, it felt like the woman comes back to the van with my tin. It's a clipboard, but it's a metal box. It opens up. It's got all kinds of my paperwork inside and things like that. She comes back with that. She gives me that. She gives me my driver's license and whatever other paperwork I had for the vehicle. And she says, "Thanks a lot, blah, blah, blah." She starts to walk away, and then she pulls a Columbo. Like, no, this isn't TV. Don't pull a fucking Columbo. She turns around, walks back to me and says, "Hey, one last thing. What's your social security number?" Which I thought was a really odd question, but I was not about to fight back in any way, because again, there's still 17 cops pointing guns at me. So I say my serial number. I won't tell you guys, but trust me, I have one. So I tell her my social security number, and like as I'm telling it to her, she's literally writing it on her hand. So she says thanks a lot. She walks back to her car, and as she's getting back to her car, I don't know exactly what happens, what the signal is, but all the cops immediately jump back into their cars and disappear into the night. Like, comically fast. They just vanish. Like it was a hallucination. It wasn't. Yeah, so that was bizarre. I didn't get shot. I didn't go to jail. It turns out I wasn't the sniper. You may have guessed at this point. And if you remember the story, it was a couple of guys in a car, not a panel van. But that's my other DC story. I said I had a third. I'm trying to remember what it was now. The third story is nowhere near as interesting. It's just the setup is funny. Again, it has to do with just being oblivious to your surroundings and what's going on. So again, we work for a transportation company. Sometimes we get special requests. We get asked to deliver certain things to certain places. So like there might be a trade show or something. So they have a bunch of stage setup stuff or equipment, things like that need to be delivered to a certain location so that it can be set up before the show, and various other scenarios. It can be anything. So I got one of these. Like I said, there's not much to this story. It's just the oblivious nature of not realizing what things look like until you're in the situation. You're thinking, wow, this isn't good. So it literally had a delivery to Pennsylvania Avenue, directly across the street from the White House. I mean, you've seen the area. So it's a it's a hotel. It's back, but it's across the street from the White House. And we had this box we had to deliver, and I didn't know what was in the box. But we go to deliver it. I say we. I'm pretty sure it was just me, but there may have been someone else with me. I don't think so. So I drive it from Philly to DC. There's a lot more boring aspects to the story, but the whole point is I get across the street from the White House. I go into this hotel with this box. We load it onto a pallet. It's DC, so there's DC security. So there's always this odd feel. There's people posted. So you've got guys with dollies near freight elevators. There's always people, blah blah blah. So I remember at one point we're taking this box, and it's interesting. The elevator goes down a lot more than you think. So a lot of these buildings in DC don't not the regular elevators maybe go to the basement. The freight elevators go down a lot further. There's a lot more under than you would expect. So I get onto the freight elevator with the box, with one of these dollies, with one of these guards, and we're going down, down, down. And we get off, and there's this antechamber we go into before we take the box to where we're taking it. I'm really not entirely sure why I was with the box. I think this was a mistake. I think my dumb ass just kept following the box, and because of the way I was handling myself, I think people just thought I needed to go with the box for some reason. So I'm way down below the hotel, going into this antechamber and then the final destination place. And since I'm down there, I don't know what, but the guy asked me to open the box. And up to this point, I didn't know what was in the box. I just assumed it was stuff. And I was right, there was stuff in the box. So I open up the box. It's got those metal tabs that you flip and turn, the rounded metal corners. I forget what those types of boxes are called, but you probably know what I'm talking about. I open it up. It is just a bunch of wires. So there's just what looked like wires. My immediate impression is that it's a crudely fashioned bomb. It's not. It's audio video equipment that's packed with all the wiring up on top. So just tons of cables and things like that. And it didn't cause any problem. It didn't look to them what it looked like to me. They're probably used to seeing this kind of stuff. So, I pulled out the foam insert and there was more stuff underneath, and they were fine. I left. I'm pretty sure I wasn't supposed to be down there in the first place. So that's my third funny story about making deliveries to DC. Again, nowhere near as good as the first two, but it was still an interesting story. To me. Maybe not to you, not to my viewer. Where am I? About 40 minutes into the trip, and I've only told two stories. Well, and also the one about the fish and the Clintons. So today, I don't know if you can tell, I'm assuming it's not as noisy as the video I took yesterday. The video I took yesterday, I took the highways, so there was significantly more road noise, and that's something I've always wanted a kind of a luxury car. Not that I don't love my Subaru. Subaru's fantastic. It's great it's very good on gas. It's all-wheel drive, which means I can literally drive in anything. I've never had a problem since I started driving Subarus. They get through absolutely everything. They're bulldogs. But I really don't like road noise. It's I've always loved those and I know they exaggerate it in movies because they're not really driving around, but in luxury cars, so but I've been in nicer cars, and the luxury cars do a fantastic do a fantastic job of eliminating road noise. And they used to advertise that for just regular schmo vehicles for people like us. They used to advertise they put asphalt in the wheel wells to reduce this kind of ridiculousness. I can't imagine asphalt would actually do anything. I see what the idea is, but it probably works, otherwise they wouldn't do it. But it sounds like absolute nonsense to me. It sounds like more mass to carry vibration. Don't remember where I was going there. just mentioning the difference in the sound between yesterday and today. So today I'm taking the back roads to work. So back to my earlier story about coffee. This is Turkey Hill coffee. Now that I'm tasting it, I definitely say it's coffee. It's only $1, so you can't complain about much. I wouldn't say it's better than McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts, but it's not bad. Part of the problem with this particular thing is it's either a psychological thing or I just have very specific taste buds. Like, I'm drinking it out of a styrofoam cup and I can taste it. I can taste the fact that I'm drinking out of a styrofoam cup and not a waxed paper cup. The ultimate thing is to just drink out of a ceramic mug or a glass mug, but you know, who's smart enough to bring their own mug with them? Not to mention, like, size-wise, just be weird. And now I'm dribbling coffee on myself, which is weird because I'm not wearing a white shirt. The lighter your shirt is a mathematical function. The lighter your shirt is, the more likely you are to spill coffee on yourself on a long enough timeline. Obviously, there's exceptions to the rule, like today. I just spilled some coffee on myself, and I'm wearing all gray. Gray tie, gray shirt, gray pants. Probably still show up if I hit myself. I should use my military jacket to cover my shirt while I'm drinking coffee because I'm a klutz. Yesterday's video went through corporate and legal, and they did have issue with quite a few snippets in there, which I will have to edit out if my viewership expands. Like, if my viewership doubles to 2, I will definitely have to start editing things out to make the people back at headquarters happy. And they're not major things. They're just anything that points to where we might live, what we do for a living, what our house looks like. The people back at headquarters take that seriously and don't really like that out there. Anything that references social media, because we're very private people. Some of us are more private than others, and so those things will have to be trimmed out in short order, and the videos reposted. I'm trying to think if I have any other interesting DC stories, because I just want to make sure that I dump them all here, because I don't want to have to give the backstory as to why I used to go to DC. I can't think of any. I mean, there's many little stories about training people and the stuff that some of the horrible drivers I hired. I once hired a driver. This is the other direction. This is New York. I once hired a driver to go to New York, the New York run, and so she gets all the way up to New York, and like, I have explained the route to her. Is it route? I have explained the route to her, and yesterday I said route, didn't I? I think maybe I said route. So I've explained the route to her. Like, I've told her all the places she's going. She gets to New York. I don't know how she got there without, maybe you can, but she gets to New York and she calls me and says, there are bridges. And I was like, yes, there are. She says, I can't drive over bridges. What? She literally could not drive over bridges. She had a crippling fear of bridges, and could, like, there's like 13 bridges you have to drive over in this route. Anyway, that was a disaster. I won't go into the fine detail of how I had to recover the route or anything like that, but it was just the most ridiculous thing that happened that day. It was just, I can't believe like, I showed it to her on a map. Like, you know, I explained the route in painful detail. She literally had no idea that she was going to be driving over bridges. That's nuts. But there was another story I was going to tell. I've distracted myself. It's, like I say often, it's early, and I don't really have a lot of fully formed thoughts at this point. Generally, I just drive in zombie mode to work. Usually halfway through the trip, regretting all the life choices that led me to this point, because it's a long drive, and I do it every morning, and it sometimes causes a slow descent into madness. So let's see, I was talking about New York. Oh, right. So I was going to tell the story about hiring people. So I had to hire a lot of people because there was turnover. Like I said, the Metro Philly routes weren't so bad. I had to replace somebody every once in a while. When you did, though, it was horrible. Like, trying to get new drivers. Because, again, it doesn't pay a lot. They're subcontractors, which means they have to use their own vehicle. Plus, with the Metro, again, remind me when I finish this little aside that I'm talking about the hiring process. But you have to train them to sort the route, and the route's not the same every day. It's mail and periodicals, so subscriptions change, and mail doesn't go to the same locations every day. So you have to you have to hire people, and then you have to train them on how to sort the route. So what happens is, over the course of the evening, all these different trucks come to your facility. They drop off mail, they drop off publications, and then at some point in the night, someone starts printing labels for all the different publications that you carry, and these labels go out to different people. Some publications come pre-labeled, which is great. So during the course of the night, people come in, they get their tables, and they start their sort, and they start putting their route together, and most people, after a while, they know their route. And I'm terrible with directions. Like, I've been terrible for, it's amazing that this is what I did for a living. But I was actually pretty good at it. Like, the Syracuse route, which I talked about briefly, is a very, very long drive. And my boss dumped it on me literally a couple days before it was supposed to start. Like, there was no warning. Like, he's like, yeah, this is our new transportation route. I need you to map it out and get a driver. So obviously I wasn't going to get a driver in like 2 days before the route. So I the first couple times I did it to make sure I could find all the locations. It was a piece of cake. It was literally like a 27-hour drive, the full loop, which is, I'm sure, extremely illegal. But if you drive straight through, you don't have to drive straight through. Once you get to Syracuse, you can stop, because what you're picking up in Syracuse was the hockey news, and that went down to Baltimore, I think, and that you didn't meet up with that person till the next day. So that could come to Philly and then go on the DC truck. But it didn't have to get back right away. So the ride could be broken up into two. But like, who wants to get halfway through the route and just stay up there, take a nap, and then have to drive all the way home to take another nap? It's like, no, you just power through. Anyway, that's just a story of that. Like I said, the metro area, like, just training people the route, having people with their own cars. Like, it's hard to get someone. Once you get someone that's good, they tend to stay. But it's just getting a new person that's a pain in the ass. Now, when I hired people for the transportation route, that's a different story. Obviously, you have to teach them the route, and you have to teach them, what comes off the truck at what location. It's funny, like, I having this job is what got me interested in Excel. A buddy of mine, who was already okay at Excel, showed me some tricks, and I used some tricks. He taught me to do a weighted analysis of the stuff that was in the truck based on many factors. Like, there was the footprint it took up in the truck, the wear and tear, like all the expenses that go along with the truck, the volume it took up, how long it was on the truck. So there was a weighted analysis based on what the weight was, what volume it took up, and how far it was going, based on the price we were getting for it. And it turned out, after I did this weighted analysis, some of the products we were carrying were losers, but we had to carry them because it curried favor with certain publishers. So, like, there was literally a bundle of 9. I'm not going to name the publication, just because. But there was literally a bundle of 9 of a very thin publication that we had to carry every night. Because that was literally, and it was a pain in the ass, because this was the last publication to be delivered to a certain place, and sometimes it wouldn't show up. And even if it didn't show up and it wasn't our fault, we still got in trouble for not delivering this publication. Anyway, back to the hiring process. So I used to hire people to do the truck runs, and you would hire them and you would have to go with them. They're taking your truck. You just want to make sure that it's not a problem. So maybe you didn't have to, but that's how I did it. I would train them. I would drive the first night. Eventually, I realized that that's silly. Most people learn better if they're driving. Being a passenger versus being the driver is different. So I did eventually learn, when I'm training people, to have them drive and just talk them through the route. And that's what I did. But in the hiring process, when I was interviewing people, there was a lot of fallout. And every single person that I ever interviewed or I ever hired, I knew was not paying attention to me at the end of my speech, because I used to tell either that, or they assumed I was crazy and didn't want to mention it. Because I would explain whether they're the DC route, the New York route, Syracuse run, whatever I was hiring them for. I had a very similar speech. I would explain the run. I'd explain what's going about our company. Sometimes I'd throw in a little history, some color commentary. I'd explain the do's and don'ts, issues that people run into. I'd explain the pay scale, blah blah blah. It actually, for what we did, I think my speech may have been a little longer than it needed to be, but I didn't want to waste time training people, because that's the worst. It happened all the time where I would train someone for a couple of days, and then when it's time to let them go on their own, they don't show up for work, or they say it's not for them, after they've already agreed to do the job. So, and I guess the other reason why I want to go with them is also you don't want, not that I don't trust people, but that's a great way to steal a truck. It's you're getting hired as a subcontractor. You're either given a panel van or a truck to do these deliveries. You could just take the truck. That's why I do the route with them the first time or first couple times, just to make sure, one, they got it, that they're definitely interested. But anyway, back to the speech that I give at the very end, after I explain all this stuff. The point I was making is that I would say, blah blah blah. I would go through some emergency procedures, who you call if you have certain problems in certain areas, and then at the very close to the very end, I would say, if there's ever any kind of problem, the truck breaks down, there's an inflatable truck in the back, you just pull that out, and then you finish the route with that. No one ever caught that. No one ever said, what? No, and nobody ever looked for the inflatable truck. So I know nobody was paying attention at the end, or my speech was so long that they'd gone brain dead at this point and just didn't want to ask questions for fear that I would just keep talking. But I just thought that was interesting, because I literally said it to everyone and no one ever questioned it. I should have some on-hold music here when there's gaps in between me talking. Or I should turn the radio on and find out if anything horrible is happening. I had thought of something before I got in the car today that I was going to ask my viewer to put in the comments, and I can't remember what it was. I don't think it was, I already said, if you have ideas for things you want me to talk about, put it in the comments. But there was something else, I can't remember. I know I was jokingly going to run a contest, and the winner, only open to subscribers, and the winner of the contest was going to win dinner at, I can't remember the name of the place. Frangelico's, something like that. It's the place where, like, for quite a few Christmases, all of our friends would meet up, have like breakfast, brunch, whatever it is, and exchange gifts. I was thinking, because I think I still have a couple of gift cards to that place, so I think it would be funny to run a contest for all of my viewer, and the winner would get a free meal. Sometimes when I'm not talking, it's because I'm at a complex intersection, and I definitely have to pay attention because nobody else does. I don't know if I mentioned the actual miles between my home and where I work, and I won't, but it's a lot. Like I said, the back roads are significantly shorter. The highway is more miles, like a lot more miles, but it's quicker by about 15 minutes. Depending on how heavy your foot is that day, it can be a little quicker than that, but it's about 15 minutes quicker than the back roads. But like I said, it's a lot more miles, and you're driving at highway speeds. I'm pretty sure the back roads are better for the car. I know when I tend to stay on the back roads, like I watch the average MPG on my car, and taking what I call the back roads, they're just roads. When I take these roads, my MPG increases. I've tried taking the non-highway route home. That time I said route. But the problem in the afternoon, like the route that I take to work, I wonder if it's the afternoon makes it route. The route that I take to work in the morning would be the same route that I take home, and it's single file. It's literally one lane the whole way. It's so in the afternoon, when there's a lot more people on the road, like either coming home from work or just doing what people do, it takes significantly longer. Like, it is so much longer than taking the highway home that it's not worth it. I've tried it a couple of times, and it's bad. It's really bad. I think I'm going to try it again today. During the height of the pandemic, it wasn't bad. Everybody was either like not working or working from home, and there was very little traffic, and you could do anything you wanted. The highways, like when I took the highway home during the height of the pandemic, I had that exception. I'm one of the people that was deemed critical to the infrastructure of the industrial military complex. So I had special dispensation. I carried papers around which allowed me to travel to and fro. I did not like that. I did not like the idea of carrying papers that I would have to show if somebody pulled me over. That was very 1984, very dystopian feeling. I didn't like the direction the world was going in then. But I had them. I had those special papers that allowed me to travel the earth. Anyway, traveling home during the height of the pandemic, it was unbelievable how quickly I got home on the highway. I generally took the back roads when I could, but when I took the highway, it was unbelievable how quickly I got home. There was literally no traffic, and I've never traveled from that point A to that point B quicker in my life. It was like, even in the middle of the night, you can't get there that fast. I might have been slightly exceeding the speed limit, but it was still unbelievable how quickly I traversed the distance from work to home when there was nobody on the road. This isn't one of those complex intersections. I just, I hate it when I say, I just don't have a lot to talk about. Little phlegmy today. My nose is a little stuffy. My unnamed viewer, whose name I've dropped multiple times, probably in every single episode of this, I was talking with him yesterday, and we talked about a couple of things, like self-referential stuff. I always find humorous, like the fact that, like, if I'm making these videos and he's my only viewer, are we going to talk less in real life because of this platform? Just, it'd be funny if we like became more distant because like there's this platform. So he's getting enough of me when he watches these videos, so why would he want to talk to me in real life? The other thing was we talked about possibly doing a and he may not have taken it this way, but we talked about possibly doing a collab, like where like he calls in, and we haven't quite figured out exactly how to, what is that square? What the hell is that square that's on the screen? Whoa. Thing's about to fall out of the holder. There's a square right there. I don't know what it is. Anyway, a collaboration like that, he would call in, like we would do like a kind of like a podcast thing where we chat, and because it would be the conversations are very stimulating. Like when we get together, we talk about a lot of different topics, and the conversations always go in these wonderful directions, and it covers the entire gamut of topics, like from the completely mundane to some complex introspective stuff, to science. Sometimes we talk about alien technology, not making any hard and fast statements about that, just saying it gets talked about. And I think it would be a great idea, because just my morning ramblings, it's very one-dimensional. It's just from my perspective, and the well I have to go to is just about me, and there's no back and forth, there's no debate, there's no conversation, there's nothing other than, like, every once in a while, if I see something, it'll cause a different thread. Has he got to stop out? No. It'll spur a different thread, but it's not the same as having a back and forth discussion with someone else, especially when they have a slightly different opinion about something, because that's a great conversation. Not that you will necessarily sway anyone in one direction or another with your opinions about stuff, but it's great for expanding the mind, trying to see things from other perspectives, and like getting someone else's take on something, because everybody's life experience is different, everybody's knowledge base is different, so no matter who you are, you probably know more about something specific than someone else does. I mean, a silly example of that, of course, is your own life. You know more about you than most other people know about you. Probably almost everyone. You probably know more about you than everyone else on the planet knows about you. And I say that with like 89% confidence. I have another friend who will not be named, who he may have already done it. He was talking about starting a YouTube channel. He's into retro computing. He's really good at computers. I think most of his life, most people work with computers, like they use computers as a tool in their job, but he's been computer tech. He's been a retro tech fanboy for a very, very long time. He loves old computers, Amigas, things like that, Commodore. And I know he was talking about starting a YouTube channel, but me and him have this like kind of a weird relationship where he may have done it already, he just hasn't told me yet. I can't tell if that's a cop or a Lyft driver behind me. I wish they would change the color of that thing. I'm going to say that's probably Lyft. I'm not doing anything illegal, so I can't imagine I'd get pulled over. But anyway, me and this other friend have this interesting relationship where to us stuff like that would be funny. Like he would start a channel, just have seasons and seasons of content and not tell me, just wait for me to find out. And that's funny. Like one of the things I wanted to do with him, and it got shot down by the humorless women in our lives. My wife was pregnant when he was getting married, but he didn't know that, and she was very pregnant right around the time when I was in the wedding, and I wanted to not tell him because although we're close friends, he, like I said, he had moved out into that nowhere where I live now, that area, and so we talked all the time, but we didn't necessarily get together all the time. So we could easily go a year or two without having a face-to-face meeting. So I thought it would have been funny to have the kid, have a couple-year-old kid, and then one day show up with this kid that we never told him about. I was like, oh yeah, I had a kid a couple years ago, didn't I tell you? Because we do stuff like that all the time. Like I got ducks. We raise ducks now. We had 4. We have 3. It's not a lot of ducks. Surprisingly, they produce a lot of eggs. We have Muscovy ducks, 3 Muscovy ducks, and during the summer they produce more eggs than we can handle. Like we literally get an egg a day from each one of these ducks. It's absolutely phenomenal. But we never told him. Like I think a couple of years went by before he found it. I think he may have even been to my house, but we never took him out back to the section where we keep the ducks. So he it came up one day, and he was surprised that I was probably doing it as a joke, but it's one of those things you forget you're even doing the joke. So I never told him I was raising ducks. Then one day he found out, so it's one of those things like, you're not raising ducks. Yeah, I got 3 ducks. And so I showed him the ducks. I should put some videos of my ducks up on here. That would be interesting. It'd be cool to intersperse them into these. When I edit the episodes, every time I have to take something out, maybe I'll just replace it with ducks. So the video's the same length, but it makes less sense. Unless you saw this episode where I said I'm going to replace the footage I have to take out with ducks. So it's a crucial episode to the duck thing, if the duck thing happens. Again, we're still at the point where I want to say too lazy to edit, which is 100% accurate. But again, when I get home, it takes time. Because of the way I'm filming, it takes time to figure out every day, to figure out how to get the footage off the phone onto the computer. And then there's that ridiculous upload to YouTube, which it boggles my mind that it takes more than twice as long to upload to YouTube than the actual length of the video. I'm sure there's really good reasons for it. They're probably running all kinds of checks on it to make sure that there's no copyright infringement, there's no bad language or pictures that are inappropriate, or maybe it's just the traffic. I don't know. I don't care because I don't upload a lot of content. Like I said, this is literally episode 4, and only 2 have been uploaded. Episodes 1 and 3 have been uploaded. Episode 2 will probably not be uploaded to YouTube. I'm don't think I said too much in this episode that would cause the people back at corporate to not let me to put it up, but we'll play it for them anyway. I wish there was a way. There probably is. I wonder if I could, because the minor editing that I do to the processing that I do to this after I take the video, I do it on the iPhone itself. So I'm literally just copying the file to my desktop, and then from my desktop I'm uploading it to YouTube. I could probably just go right to YouTube, eliminate the middleman of copying it to my desktop. I won't stop copying it to my desktop because I don't want to fill my phone with all these videos. So I might try that when I get to the location. I might see if I can do that quickly, get it uploading directly from the phone. That way my viewer doesn't have to wait as long for content. I don't know if you recognize the area. I know it's very difficult to see out the windows because, again, you're looking at my pudgy mug instead of looking at the road, which I've already said multiple times would probably be much more interesting, but I still insist on just filming me. I think part of it is that you really can't get a very good sense of where I am when it's facing me, and that's important to some people. They don't really want you to know where I'm coming from or where I'm going to. Very dry, very thirsty. I could use some water. I'm tiptoeing around the fact that we're at the actual point where I have to end the video. So I'm going to do that. Have a wonderful day.